I believe some folks are dropped off. If you could just be sure to promote that, well, you might have done that already. So Maria's back. Um, Maria, are you back?
Hi, I'm here.
There you are. Thank you. Jig, are you back?
I'm here.
Thank you, Jig. Renee?
Present.
Thank you, Renee. India, are you back? Don't see her on the list, so we'll move forward. Trevor? Don't see Trevor on the list. Maybe he'll be joining soon. Jesse, there you are.
I'm here.
And Jose?
I'm here.
Thank you, Jose. And KK?
Present.
Perfect. And Ricardo? You back, Ricardo? Oh, there's Indira. Ricardo, are you back? Don't hear you. And Trevor's hand is raised. If you could please promote him back. Hi, Indira. And Trevor's back. All right. Forum is back again. We'll get right back on it. So after hearing, I'm sorry that timing of it was a little awkward, but we need to respect the lunch break of our staff as well. So going to the next question. Given federal requirements for hospital pharmacy patient care, should the board prioritize a legislative solution for inpatients and request that the licensing committee continue its policy discussion on possible expansion for outpatient prescriptions? Note, the last day for a bill to be introduced for the session is February 17th of 2023. Maria, jump right in there.
Thank you. This is an area that I'm particularly passionate about because I've been involved with this process in acute care facilities for a long time. Currently and for more than 20 years, hospitals that are not open 24 hours have a remote verification process of chart orders that are in patient medication records. So the computer medication record has the medication order in there, and the order is verified by a pharmacist present at the hospital or remotely if the hospital is closed. This is to meet federal guidelines and standards where pharmacists are required to review all medication orders prior to administration in an acute care facility. So this is something that's been going on for such a long time, and it came to a little bit of a surprise and shock to us in the community that this was not entirely clear in the current law. Some people say it's implied and some people say it's not, but it's not clear. So this came to light with the waiver and the extended use in all practice settings. And so I enjoyed that this question is separate because I think that the discussions are different for the different practice settings, and I see that we have a lot to consider in non-acute care facilities, but there is a sense of urgency in acute care facilities because this system of remote order verification allows for hospitals to comply with federal standards, and it provides for patient safety. It has been documented and well documented that patient lives are saved and medication errors are reduced when a pharmacist is part of the medication order verification process. This is the standard of care across the country. So answering number 2, I think this needs to be prioritized and not held back with the ongoing discussion with the other practice settings. If we wait, then we actually create a gap and patient harm can result. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. Any other comments before we open? Trevor, go ahead.
Yeah, my comments are more logistical than anything about the concept of the bill itself. I mean, we'll need to, kind of as I said in my initial comments, it's not as simple as us making the recommendation for a statutory change, but it's actually needing to get a legislator to co-sponsor it and introduce it and all of these things. And so, again, not necessarily saying a yay or nay on everything, but I think it's great if we prioritize something, but we also have to be realistic that the board voting to pursue a statutory change does not automatically mean that a statutory change is going to be introduced. And so I think we should be looking at this from just a couple of levels of, one, okay, if we do, what does prioritizing actually mean in the substantive sense of like, okay, if we do vote to pursue a statutory change, does that mean we are instructing staff to actively go to assembly or House leadership or asking the governor to introduce a bill? I think prioritizing is a bit I don't know if perfunctory is the right word. But if there's something that we are going to be saying needs to be pursued urgently, I would recommend being a little bit more descriptive, because as it is right now, saying we're prioritizing something when we actually have no specific power over the legislative process is just kind of throwing something into the ether. And so that's just a process angle I wanted to point out.
Thank you for the comments, Trevor. Maria, your thoughts?
I just wanted to clarify. What I mean prioritize is not to hold up the more urgent need with trying to accomplish everything for everyone. I think that this is a very complex issue, and that if we were to try to do everything all at once, it could take a long time, and in the meantime, patients will be harmed and affected. So that's why I'm pleased that actually the recommendation of the committee has this language for hospitals and health systems, or just hospitals. They're listed, and the larger issue, which is really important, is still on the table to be discussed further. And so just as some background to repeat what Sung said, is that the board did put forth statutory language last year, and because it was so broad, I believe, is my understanding, that there was a lot of opposition. And so maybe a stepwise approach, and having this be the first step, and then there'd be a second step, and potentially a third step. But to break it apart so that we do have some movement forward instead of losing everything. So that's just a clarification. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. Thanks for the comments. Just to clarify, there was a little confusion, I think, from the public comments as well as just from our discussion. The committee does not have a recommendation at this point. So if we do have any potential steps forward, we have a possible motion, if members are agreeable, that it will need to be made at the end of this discussion. So just for the record. Jessie.
Thank you. Just for clarification, I guess this is a question directed at Maria. So this doesn't actually change anything in current law, is that correct? We're just providing clarification because it was unclear for some people that this was already existing. Is that correct?
I think it's more of a question for Eileen, because the non-attorneys and those who have been in the practice thought that the law was clear, but Eileen could probably speak to how it's not so clear.
Eileen, are you ready to
Hi,
speak on this? Go ahead,
Hi,
Eileen.
this is-
Thank you.
Smiley, it's without going into the details, hospitals have got special authority under pharmacy law that this is something that we could maybe make a clarification on. I don't think the board has ever expressed an opinion with respect to the extent of 4052.1, but to make it clear based on some of the other provisions in pharmacy law, that might be preferable. But at this point, without going into fact specifics, which we don't want to get into, there is separate authority for pharmacists operating in a hospital, but some of the scope of that could be subject to interpretation or doubt. And that could be an area that maybe the board tries to seek clarification or, the wider expansion of what Dr. Serpa was talking about with respect to the treatment of patients in inpatient facilities, that don't have a pharmacist on duty 24 hours.
Okay. Just reading the language as it states, I will say as someone who's not in acute care setting, it's a little unclear to me without going into each individual section that this is referring to acute care settings. It almost seems like any licensed facility is able to have a remote processing pharmacist. So I would say the language probably needs to be ironed out a little bit further just to be very clear on what we're referring to.
Jesse, are you talking about, not to try to be
It's attachment 8 for like the proposal.
okay, so
Um,
you're talking about license pursuant to 1250.
I believe so. It's
Okay,
the addition of section D.
got
Yes,
it. Okay.
pursuant to,
Yeah,
to 1250. Thank you.
Yep, okay. So that was just being mindful. Also, there are facilities like hospices that really need pharmacists to be able to review medication orders. Obviously, we really don't want, and this is just such an awkward issue and very complicated issue. So, Anne, I will let you speak. Go ahead.
So should it be helpful, the section that Eileen kind of referred to in 4052.1, where she was talking about there's some separate authorities, it talks about those functions that are performed in a licensed healthcare facility. And so the language, I don't know that it does it right, but the language in there was talking about the pharmacist located and licensed in California may, on behalf of a licensed healthcare facility, pursuant to, so the facility would be a licensed healthcare facility licensed pursuant to 1250. And so there's different types of licenses under 1250, but it's a GAC, it's a hospice facility, skilled nursing facility, those kinds of things, which I believe are those that would also potentially be covered under 4052.1. I don't know if that's helpful. Sorry if I've muddied the waters.
Thank you,
No,
Anne.
that does help. Thank you.
Surely is a complex issue. I'm gonna open up for public comment if the members don't have any other comments. Moderator? Moderator?
I have just received a message that some of the Department of Consumer Affairs has lost power.
Oh my
So
God.
that could potentially have impacted potentially where the moderator is located, as well as our co-moderator.
Okay, that explains. I would probably have to take a break until we get some clarification because we cannot proceed without the moderator. So we'll take a 10-minute break. Well, let's do 15 just so we give them some plenty of time. We'll come back at 1:30. I'll stay on just to make sure if we can confirm that they're back. But everyone else is excused for 15-minute break. speak? Just want to confirm before we get started.
I am not entirely sure what page of the presented material you were on, but I believe
We're about to go to public comment.
okay, and we're still talking about question 2, the federal requirements for hospital. Okay.
Yep.
Perfect. So if you'd like, I can go ahead and start the public comment process.
Just one
Right.
sec before I just gotta take a quick roll call.
Oh, perfect. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you, Maria.
I am here.
Thank you, Maria. Jig.
Here.
Hi, Renee.
Present.
Where did Indira go? Indira is not in. Trevor.
Here.
Jesse.
Here.
Jose.
Present.
Thank you, KK.
Present.
And Ricardo.
Right here.
Thank you. Hopefully everyone stays safe. I think some areas in Sacramento lost power. And moderator, if you could just make sure Indira, if she's back, you could promote her to the panelists.
I will
And
certainly keep my eyes open.
thank you. We'll go to public comment.
All right, so this is the moderator and we are opening public comment. And if you would like to make a comment, you can look for the question mark icon, typically at the lower right of your WebEx screen or behind the 3-dot other options. Type the word comment into the text box and click send. Your other option is to raise your hand by clicking on the hand icon, and our call-in users can press *3 to raise their hand. And we do have a couple of requests for comments. One moment. So the first request for comment comes from someone logged into WebEx as Annie Kim. Annie, I'm going to send you a request to unmute your microphone and you will have 3 minutes to speak. You're unmuted.
Hi again, this is Annie Kim, a California licensed pharmacist. I do want to let the board know and the public in attendance that specialty pharmacy has patients that need immediate care as well. Although we are not inpatient, if some of our patients lack the care and interventions of our clinical pharmacists, they can be hospitalized or even worse. We have on-call pharmacists and even same-day delivery for urgent medications and situations. This can be done because we work from home. I implore you to please regard specialty pharmacists not only as an outpatient setting, but as an important role in pharmacy to prevent patients from having to be admitted to the hospitals. Thank you.
And thank you. Our next request for comment is from John Gray. John, I'll send you a request to unmute your microphone and you'll have 3 minutes.
All right. Hi, everyone. Thank you. This is John Gray. I'm a registered pharmacist with Kaiser Permanente. Thank you for the opportunity to, again, provide comments on this topic and on question number 2. As you know, Kaiser Permanente operates dozens of hospitals served by dedicated inpatient pharmacies here in the state of California. While taking a stepwise approach, as described in question 2, would not be our preferred approach, we also do not want the perfect to be the enemy of the good. And rather than no remote work proposal advancing before the waiver expires, we would prefer to see the hospital pharmacy proposal in attachment 8 advance now, while the licensing committee and the board continue to discuss the provisions under which remote work should be allowed in additional practice settings and by other pharmacy staff. Since some board members have started discussing the proposed statutory language in attachment 8, I'm going to make one comment on the proposed language that dovetails with question number 2. Perhaps I'm missing some nuance in the proposed statutory language, and if that's the case, my apologies. But with respect to that specific proposed language to change Business and Professions Code 4071.1 in attachment 8, it appears as though there might be some important words missing from the language as it's written. I'm wondering if the proposed language shouldn't read, a pharmacist located and licensed in California may, on behalf of a healthcare facility licensed pursuant to Health and Safety Code 1250, verify medication chart orders for appropriateness prior to administration. And here's where I think some words might need to be added. from any location outside of the facility consistent with federal requirements and as established in the healthcare facilities policies and procedures. Again, if I'm missing some nuance as to why that particular phrase from any location outside the facility isn't required, I apologize. Just want to make sure that we're not missing something. Thank you for the opportunity to provide these comments.
Thank you for the comment, Dr. Gray. Moderator, could you please promote Indira? Oh, there. Thank you. Great.
And
All
then yes, we have more comment requests. Is that okay to proceed?
Go ahead. Yep.
Thank you. So our next request for comment is from Stephen Gray. Stephen, I'll send you a request to unmute and you will have 3 minutes to speak. And Stephen, there you go.
Thank you very much. Having a long history with pharmacy legislation, I'd just like to help clarify something. Section 4071.1, actually, it was my organization that sponsored that legislation, was all about entering a prescription or an order into a pharmacy system from outside the facility. The term enter means that once it's entered by the pharmacist in this case, it is ready for administration. That's what enter means. There are a lot of orders that are pended that go to the pharmacist. For an example, even in some hospitals, an oncologist will pend an order to the pharmacist for review before it is entered into the system and ready to be administered to the patient, or in an outpatient situation, ready to be dispensed. So there is really no need for this subsection D to be added. We have been practicing according to subsection A in hospitals and in outpatient facilities with the limitations, for an example, on controlled substances for over probably 20 or 30 years, fully accepted by the Hospital Association, required by federal law. The idea that was voiced about looking for something in 405.2.1 is a completely different subject. That is a subject about the pharmacist's scope of practice, and that the hospitals have special authority for pharmacists that are working in the hospital to actually initiate, adjust, and discontinue prescription medication according to the hospital policies and procedures, hospital administration approval, etc. But I am really surprised at this, that someone thinks this subsection D is needed. If this were to go into effect and the Board of Pharmacy did not use its discretion and decided to discipline according to the lack of subsection D, it would in fact mean that at the federal level, all hospitals would have to stop admitting Medicare, Medicaid patients because of the conditions of participation. So I understand about the lack of history, perhaps for some of the people on the board and the staff, but I see no need for subsection D as it relates to reviewing, entering, or verifying medication orders from outside the hospital. Thank you.
Thank you for the comments, Dr. Gray.
And I do not see any other requests for comment. Shall I close the Q&A feature?
Yes, please.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Any other member comments before we proceed to next question? All right, the next question, 3, does the board wish to provide policy direction to the committee on specific elements if it believes must be included in any proposal related to expanding current remote processing provisions for outpatient prescription process? Members? This will really help the committee in figuring out the next steps. So anyone who has any strong feelings about any topics, please feel free to speak. Jessie?
Thank you. As I mentioned earlier, I do think there is The biggest concern I have is in regard to chain community pharmacy. And so I think there was a proposal earlier about potentially excluding chain retail pharmacies. I will say, after hearing public comment and hearing that the majority of people who do work remotely had to take a pay cut to get there, I'm more concerned that long term, a chain retail pharmacy, if given the opportunity to continue with remote work, will choose to do that rather than actually staff pharmacies appropriately in person. And as someone who does work in person, what I need is help with my registers. I need help answering phone calls. I need help doing a lot of tactile work, like actually physically filling the prescription. And so while it is helpful to have a little bit of assistance with the verification and entering from time to time, I just want to make sure that we're not losing the actual tactile help long term. So that's my biggest concern with the community pharmacy. I think I had a couple other notes, community chain pharmacy rather. I do want to make sure we're also addressing the issue of PIC liability head on in terms of who will be liable for a specific pharmacy. And I will also note that as someone who's verifying, there are times where I will come up with a DUR or drug interaction or a note within a patient's profile, and I'll make a note for myself to consult that patient on a specific issue, and you lose that a little bit when you have remote verification. So that's something that you can really only have when you have one pharmacist verifying for a specific patient, and you're also the pharmacist who's counseling that patient. And I think that, yeah, that's really my only note. Thank you.
Thank you, members. Any other comments? Please feel free to share your thoughts. It's a complex issue. And you're more than happy to share that with Anne as well, as she could explain background of this issue probably much better as well. All right, hearing none, I'm going to open up for public comment.
And this is the moderator, and we've opened up the WebEx Q&A feature to facilitate public comment. If you'd like to make a comment, you can look for the question mark icon, typically in the lower right corner. Click on that question mark, type the word comment in the text box, and click send. Anyone else may also raise their hand by clicking on the hand icon. And if you are a call-in user, you may press *3 to raise your hand. Each speaker will have 3 minutes with a 10-second warning. And I have a request for comment from John Gray. John, I will send you a request to unmute your microphone, and you will have 3 minutes.
Hello again. John Gray, registered pharmacist with Kaiser Permanente. Thanks again for the opportunity to provide comment on this question. So, at this point, I'm looking forward to further discussion in the licensing committee on what kind of guardrails the committee and the board think need to be in place for remote work to be authorized at other facility types other than, say an inpatient hospital, if the board decides to advance proposal that is in the meeting materials, as well as other pharmacy personnel. But what I also want to suggest related to that is that if the board does seek to run a bill this year, it might be of benefit for the bill text to include a provision that gives the board the authority to allow remote processing in the outpatient setting via the regulatory pathway when it's ready to do so. For example, the bill text could say something like, the board may adopt regulations establishing the conditions under which a pharmacist and/or pharmacy technician located and licensed in California is permitted to engage in remote processing of a prescription for a pharmacy within the state of California. Probably would need some wordsmithing if you're going to try to parse it and make it different from the hospital pharmacy side. But some kind of language like that would provide the board with the statutory authority to expand remote processing when it's ready to do so, without needing to go back to the legislature to pass another bill. Just something for y'all to ruminate on over the next couple of days if you're going to try to run a bill on this. Thank you again for the opportunity to provide comment.
Thank you, Dr. Gray.
And we have a request for comment from Ines Anton. Ines, I'm going to send you a request to unmute yourself, and you'll have 3 minutes to speak.
Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to comment one more time. But regarding the DOR question, as long as I worked in retail for 8 years, and I get the chance to do data verification, and we did a comment of patient counseling. So sometimes the pharmacist who does the data verification is different than the pharmacist who does the product verification, and it's different from the third pharmacist who does counseling at the pickup, because we have different shifts, and it's not always the same pharmacist if the patient didn't pick up on time. And the same with the specialty, we get a DOR notification and while verification, and again while doing a clinical review, when we do order clinical review task. And we did receive patient counseling tasks, and we have to call the patient. If the patient or the caregiver didn't pick up the call, we have to call again and make sure this information is delivered either to the patient or the paying caregiver. And we do have a DOR history now on our system. So if you go to the patient engagement screen, there is a DOR history that you can view all the past DORs that was bypassed or MDO reached or patient reached or whatever. So this is regarding the DOR. I just want to add this comment. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you for the comments.
And I do not see, we do have a couple more requests for comment. The first commenter is logged in as Tina. Tina, I'm going to send you a request to unmute, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Hi. I just wanted to give my opinion about the pay cut issue, which the respected board member shared. So again, just to repeat my point, it is about options. So we know retail and hospitals, there are different settings, and it's not for everybody. Again, as I said earlier, there are people who cannot do retail. So by saying that these people, people have moved to different settings and they got a pay cut, and we should not be promoting that or encouraging that or be scared of what might happen. But the realization should be there that we are going to put licensed pharmacists out of job who do not have the option to go into retail or a hospital setting. So it is not a matter of this or that. It is not an all choice between the two. There are pharmacists for all kind of positions, and those who prefer can make a choice. It's just about giving more choices. So I think we need to be more, compassionate and keep the needs of all kind of pharmacists who need different job opportunities in mind, rather than being scared of a trend of, pay cuts or even the labor laws. That is something that easily the board can govern. They can put a requirement that, they're going to be somebody earlier was saying this is going to decrease the amount of help the community has. But that is something which can be regulated. So, instead of being scared of what could be the negative repercussions, we just need to put guardrails to be able to have both the settings work properly. And I would really request the board to move into that direction rather than just, shutting the work from home down or, making it as a negative place to work with. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the comment.
And our next request for comment comes from someone logged into WebEx as Mohammed Musat. Mohammed, I'm going to send you a request to unmute your microphone, and you'll have 3 minutes. You're unmuted.
I'm a pharmacist. I work in specialty home infusion. Most of what I wanted to say has already been covered, so I'm going to skip over that. I think there's just 2 points I really wanted to hit on. The first point in particular is, as a specialty home infusion, I've been taking home call after hours and on weekends for 20 years, and I'm concerned that basically the way that we're evaluating and interpreting the current rules severely limits how I'm going to be able to communicate with my patients and evaluate what's going on with them clinically. How deeply I can get into that, and how much I can get into view their charts or whatnot without having to actually drive into the office. Based on the interpretations we're discussing. The other thing that I wanted to mention was that there is already a template for what we're talking about. If you want to look at our cousins who work for the Department of Corrections, they already have set up a system for doing telemedicine, and they are in contact with the state, and the rules go through the state, and they get approved, and they have their setups with their devices that are on VPNs and go through their security features. But it's something that already exists and can be used as a template if that's what we need to give us more confidence in our ability to make this go forward. And that's what I wanted to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the comments.
And I do not see any other requests for comment at this time. Shall I close the public Q&A?
Yes, please, moderator. Thank you. Appreciate that. Maria, your hand is raised. I'm just going to make a quick comment. Eileen and Ann, please correct me. There's a lot of confusion from the public comments. I just want to make it clear that the Business and Professions Code 4052 lays out functions that a pharmacist may do that is regardless of a location. Just want to point that out. Maria?
Yes, I wanted to add to the discussion because a concept that was not clear to me at the very beginning when we've talked about this, and that was remote order entry versus remote processing. And to me, I think sometimes some of the comments, people are lumping them together. And to me, they're very, very different. One is talking about an order, which is processing, a request, and a prescription, and order. And the other one is actually remote processing, which is reviewing and potentially approving the product, the prescription, the pills, the liquid. Those are totally different functions. And so I think that wherever we go, we need to be clear that those are separate and have the different discussions. I think one of the public comments had a very interesting idea of adding a more generic kind of a umbrella kind of comment about how to do outpatient, and then later have that be discussed more in detail as a regulation. But then he used remote order processing. And to me, that just set up some big red flags because I'm not comfortable with remote order processing at this point. I am comfortable with remote order entry, which is a little bit different. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. Any other thoughts? KK?
Yeah, just to add to that, I think the whole discussion, at least in my limited understanding, is to permitting the current set of activities that are already happening and has happened previous to COVID with related to remote processing, which is mostly order entry, mostly pharmacist verification, drug-drug interaction, and taking verbal and things of those nature. So I assume we are continuing the definition of what is permissible or what was permissible, and then exploring the ideas of how to make it, A, allow it to happen after the restrictions are lifted, and then B, how do we make that more safer by hopefully providing some kind of a data or security regulations or enhancement. Thanks.
Thank you, KK. Any other comments? All right, so where we are is the committee unfortunately did not have a quorum to provide any recommendations. So we just had a discussion at the committee level. And what we are doing today is just from that discussion where we might have a consensus in terms of inpatient as per the discussion and the meeting materials provided. And with that, there is a attachment 8, as you all know. There is a possibility for anyone interested to make a motion to proceed with this part of it. I do believe that it is a step in the right direction, at least, to resolve an immediate problem as much as we could. But as Trevor mentioned, this is a legislative proposal. It will need to go through quite a significant hoops. It was very challenging last year. But at least we do need to move forward in some ways, I believe. So if anyone would like to make a motion, please feel free to do so. And also, I'm more than happy to incorporate any comments the public comments have in trying to maybe amend the motion if you so desire, or leave it as it is proposed by staff level. Maria, your hand is raised.
Yeah, I think we need to consider the public comment. I believe it was Dr. Gray from Kaiser, who mentioned it needs to be more clear about outside of the facility and wherever that could be included in there. Just to be clear, that that's the intent of this language.
Okay, you want to incorporate his comments into the motion? Jesse?
Hey, Sung, this is Jesse. Yeah, I thought it was actually pretty clear, that first sentence there that says a pharmacist located and licensed in California. To me, I thought that was the part that made it clear that it didn't have to be in a licensed facility since it says on behalf of, but I would be open to hear discussions from other people as to whether or not they think it should be clarified as well.
I'll just actually refer to Anne and Eileen on this one. So Eileen, what are your thoughts as a legal mind? Because obviously some of the legal minds are the reason why we're here, and it's a struggle. So
Hi, President this is Eileen Smiley. I kind of read it the way Member Crowley did. However, as this would be a legislative proposal, we could go in with language and explain what the intent is. And as everybody knows, the language we propose may not, be considered or may not be adopted. It's going to be subject to amendment. But I kind of read it the same way Jesse did. But if we wanted to put that in for extra clarity, we can also communicate to the persons we're seeking to sponsor this or to co-sponsor it what the intent is, if that helps.
Sounds good. Okay. Any other thoughts? Anyone want to make a motion? It's a daunting motion, I suppose. Maria, your hand is raised. You're being brave. Thank you.
I move that we have the motion as projected on the screen here to sponsor legislation.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Ricardo. Appreciate that. All right, with the motion in a second, and we'll go for public comment.
And this is the moderator, and we're opening public comment. That we're using the WebEx Q&A feature to facilitate public comment. If anyone has a comment on the motion, you can look for the question mark icon, typically in the lower right of your WebEx screen. Click that, and then in the text box, write the word comment and click send. Anyone may also raise their hand by clicking on the hand icon, and our call-in users can press *3 to raise their hands. Each speaker will have 3 minutes. And we have a request to comment from Lori Walmsley. Lori, I'm going to send you a request to unmute your microphone, and then you'll have 3 minutes.
Again, thank you, board members, for taking the time to hear comments. I would like to once again encourage the board consider opening this up for all practice settings. As you've heard from a number of pharmacists, there are a number of people that will be impacted if there is not action taken. And I just urge the board to continue to allow pharmacists to support the community in the most impactful ways that they have the ability to do so. Thank you for the time.
Thank you, Lori.
And our next request for comment is from John Gray. John, I'm going to send you a request to unmute, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Thank you very much. John Gray, registered pharmacist with Kaiser Permanente. Thanks for considering the feedback I previously gave on the draft text. You know, I would encourage the board to, even if it is a belt and suspenders approach, I would encourage the board to consider adding the language that this verification that's envisioned in D may be done from a location outside the facility. I'll just point out, you know, part of the thing that we've been talking about today, and my colleague Steve Gray highlighted it really well, is that there's ambiguity around what the word enter means as it exists in 4071.1. So I would just hate to, you know, I'm still only halfway through my career, so I'd hate to, like, 20 years from now be our 4071.1D means. So I would encourage I guess what I'm saying is I would encourage the board to, you know, attempt to eliminate as much ambiguity or vagueness as possible from the proposed statutory language. Thank you for the opportunity to provide comments once again. It's been a really, collegial discussion, so I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Gray.
And I do not see any other requests for comment at this time. Shall I close the public comment feature?
Yes, please. I'm going to survey back to members after some public comments. Your thoughts? Anyone have any comments? Trevor, go ahead.
Yeah, I just I think there's a lot of both policy and logistical questions that are still up in the air for me as far as endorsing a piece of legislation beyond whether or not it would even get picked up or sponsored. As my previous comments I said, it'll be a very heavy lift to do something like that. In addition, my putting forth some recommended language without the kind of the guardrails that we were talking about, and without possibly tying licensure to ensuring that the remote locations are being held to the same standards. I'm going to vote no on this. I think we should definitely keep the committee conversation going, but in the end, this is one way or another, whether we endorse a particular piece of legislation or not, or a particular language for a piece of legislation or not, this is a legislative issue that the legislature will need to solve. And that'll be the case whether or not this moves forward. But I will be voting no, just because I feel that the safeguards and the enforcement mechanisms just aren't there for this particular piece.
Thank you for the comments, Trevor. And Jesse?
Thank you. Circling back to one of the previous public commenters, I'm kind of stuck in the place of, it sounds like we're just clarifying existing statute, so I'm not sure how this really changes much, even after the discussion, and whether or not this proposal is necessary. But I just want to leave it there. I don't know if anyone else is in a similar kind of state of confusion or same place as me, but I'd be curious to hear some feedback from members.
Oh, I hear you, Jesse. Maria?
Yeah, just to clarify, this has actually given me a lot of heartburn when we found out that the legal opinion was showing that what we've been doing for 20 plus years was not appropriate. and that we were going beyond the scope of the law. And it goes back to kind of what Dr. John Gray recently said too, is, be very clear, because 10 years from now, other people will interpret it differently. And so when this was discussed years ago, I was a recent graduate, it was exciting because this gave greater safety to patients, and we thought it was very clear. But obviously it's not clear because it did not stand the proof of time, and the current legal opinions show that it's the intent is not in the words, and the words need to show the intent. So to me, this is very important.
Thank you, Maria.
As
Jessie,
a
go ahead.
follow-up to that, then, Maria, would you consider then being more clear in the language? If that's the whole essentially intention of adding this subsection D, wouldn't it make sense to be as clear as possible then? And to potentially add clarification that it's a facility outside of that licensed facility?
Yeah, I agree. I thought that was a very helpful comment because of what, the misinterpret, it has intent, but you could also say that, well, yes, in the same building, and they're still licensing. There's so many different ways. So being extremely clear, I think, is important. So I think one of the things I heard from Sung was that would be something that would be looked at when discussing with the potential author. And Eileen, I think Eileen Smiley also said that.
Thank you, Jessie. Thank you, Maria. Would you like to amend the motion, Maria, or are you going to keep up?
Okay, I guess to be clear then would be to sponsor legislation to amend BMP codes 4071.1 as in attachment 8, adding the language outside the facility. I don't know if I want to actually say where to put that in there, but maybe prior to administration outside the facility, I think was the suggestion.
Yeah, I think so. Prior to. Yep.
Would you say outside of the licensed facility?
Sure. Or outside of the healthcare facility.
Okay. Ricardo, are you okay with seconding that motion?
This is Renee. Sorry.
Yes, I am.
Of just not located in the healthcare facility. I mean,
okay.
Just throwing that out as another potential option.
Jessie, any thoughts? Oh, sorry, your hand was raised. That's
sorry.
Oh, never mind. Okay.
Sorry. So where did we land on in terms of where we're adding that? Should be.
I think it's orders appropriate prior to administration. Outside the well, I mean, I guess then I don't want it to be like obviously inside and outside. I don't. You know what? I'm not a lawyer. This is why I don't try to play this game at the meetings, but we'll let the hospital pharmacist make the motion.
I would look to Eileen to help to figure that out because I think the interpretation needs to be clear to a non-pharmacist.
Yeah.
Clear to an attorney.
Yep. Sorry, Eileen. Gotta put you on the spot.
Sorry, I think then we'll have to take it offline. Can we do a motion then to delegate to the executive officer working with council and the president the ability to amend this to contemplate that provision? I can't, it's a rather long provision, and if we add more phrases and it gets longer, there may be a way to shorten it.
That's probably a smart idea, so we don't have to. Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Let's do that. Obviously, we're not legislators, so. Okay, we'll just leave the motion as it is then. But Maria, are you okay amending the motion to that? I mean, I would
Yes.
imagine the motion
Yes,
automatically.
with the provisions that the executive officer, staff, and president have the authority to make those adjustments.
Thank you. And Ricardo, are you okay seconding?
Yeah, I'm okay seconding it.
Thank you so much. With that, I do believe I need to go to public comment one more time.
And this is the moderator, and we've opened up the WebEx Q&A feature to facilitate public comment. If you've got any comment on the motion, you may look for the question mark icon, typically in the lower right corner of your WebEx screen. Click that, type the word comment, and click send. Or anyone may raise their hand to ask to speak by clicking on the hand icon. And our call-in users can press *3 to raise their hand. Each speaker will have 3 minutes. We do have a request to speak from Stephen Gray. Stephen, I'm going to send you a request to unmute, and you will have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Having put forth this motion, I think that after the motion, there probably needs to be an immediate discussion about what the board is going to do in the meantime. If the board is so sure that this verification from outside the hospital is illegal now, is it going to use its discretion not to enforce that? This bill may not get introduced. It may not pass this year. It may not go into effect even until January 1, 2005, or something of that nature next year. And there are a lot of hospitals that don't even have a pharmacy, that don't even have a pharmacist. Anything under 100 beds doesn't have to have either. And then there are other hospitals that, that use this and rely on it to meet federal requirements, as was discussed. So the board, having signaled that it is going in this direction because it's either unclear or illegal, needs to have a discussion about what's going to happen in the meantime. I would also discuss immediate discussions with California Department of Public Health and other entities that will have an interest in this. And also, I'm sure you're going to hear from the California Hospital Association. So, I think that is incumbent on the board to continue this discussion if going forward, maybe even right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Gray, for bringing that up. Great point.
And I do not see any other requests for public comment at this time. Shall I close the public comment feature?
Thank you. Yes. Thank you, moderator. Thank you, everyone, for enduring through this discussion. I knew this was going to be a doozy, but of course, it's been a discussion. So we're going to go for vote. The motion is on the table.
Point of clarification, President.
Go ahead, Trevor.
We are voting on the original motion, and we're not voting to amend the motion. We are voting on the original motion, correct?
The original motion with amendments that allows the council, executive officer, and the president to try to clarify the language to make it crystal clear that what we are proposing is that outside of a facility.
Gotcha.
In the 4071.1. All right. Maria, how do you vote?
Yes.
Thank you, Maria. Jake, how do you vote?
Yes.
Thank you. Renee, how do you vote?
Yes.
Thank you. Indira, how do you vote?
Yes.
Thank you. Trevor, how do you vote?
No.
Thank you. Jesse, how do you vote?
Yes.
Thank you. Jose, how do you vote?
No.
Thank you. KK, how do you vote?
Yes.
Thank you. Ricardo, how do you vote?
Yes.
Thank you. And I vote yes, the motion passes. But just to bring in Dr. Gray, and we are obviously aware of this, we will hopefully provide some next steps on what we would need to do. I know that this is a challenging issue, so we are aware of the realities. So Thank you, everyone, for your comments and your thoughts. Appreciate it. And we'll proceed. Next agenda item is 13, Organizational Development Committee Report. Now, provide a quick update on several items under the purview of the Organizational Development Committee. You'll note from the meeting materials, there is one potential item for action. Budget update fiscal year 22 through 23. The new fiscal year began on July 1st, 2022. The board spending authorization for the new fiscal year is about $31.3 million, which is a 2.5% increase from the prior year. A review of the fund condition prepared by the department indicates that at the end of the fiscal year 2021 through 22, the board has 5.1 months in reserve. As indicated in the meeting materials, under provisions of pharmacy law, the board shall seek to maintain a reserve equal to approximately 1 year's operating expenditures. Further, the fund condition projects a continued depletion of the board's fund. Reminder that there is a fee bill that we are attempting to sponsor this year. Hopefully we'll keep you guys updated of the progress on that. Members, any questions on the budget report? Moderator, please open the line for public comment.
And we are opening up the WebEx Q&A to facilitate public comment. If you'd like to make a comment, you can look for the question mark icon and then type the word comment into the text box and click send. Or anyone may raise their hand by clicking on the hand icon, or any call-in user can press *3 to raise their hand, and each speaker will have 3 minutes. Are there any comments? I do not see any comments. Shall I close the Q&A feature?
Please, thank you. Moving on to the next, board member attendance and mail vote information. Attendance is summarized in attachment 2, and attachment 3 includes mail vote information. Thank you again. I cannot thank you all enough for all your participation and dedication to this board, members. Appreciate your time. I know it's a lot. Any member comments? Public comment, please, moderator.
And we're opening up the WebEx Q&A to facilitate public comment. If there is any request for comment on this topic, you can look for the question mark icon, type the word comment in the text box and click send. And others may press the hand icon to raise their hand to request to be recognized. And our call-in users can press *3 to raise their hand. And we do have a request for comment from someone logged into the meeting as Charles Daniels. Charles, I'm going to send you a request to unmute your microphone, and you'll have 3 minutes to speak. And you're unmuted.
Members of the board, I'm Charles Daniels, and I'm a licensed pharmacist in California, the chief pharmacy officer at University of California, San Diego. I've enjoyed the complex discussions today. I want to share with the group that I submitted a written set of comments regarding the mandatory reporting of medication errors for retail pharmacies. I apologize that I was unable to join the meeting earlier, but I want to make sure the board is aware that I have submitted a separate written comment.
Thank you, Dr. Daniels.
And I do not see any further requests for comment. Shall I close the public comment feature?
Yes, please. Thank you, moderator. Next is personnel update. As detailed in the meeting materials, the board has a number of vacancies, including a key leadership position. The vacancy count is higher as the board received new positions July 1st. It is my understanding several of the inspector and licensing positions have active recruitments underway. Look forward to monitoring the progress of these recruitments, as filling vacancies will help reduce processing times. Working closely with Anne on recruitment challenges. Members, do you have any questions or comments on the personnel update? Moderator, please open the line for public comment.
And we are opening up the Q&A feature of WebEx to facilitate public comment. If there are any comments on the personnel update, you can look for the question mark icon, type the word comment and click send, or anyone may raise their hand by clicking on the hand icon. And our call-in users can press *3 to raise their hand. Each speaker will have 3 minutes. And I see no requests for comment. Shall I close the Q&A feature?
Yes, please. Thank you so much. Next item is future meeting dates. Attachment 4 includes a meeting calendar for the remainder of the year. I believe you all received an email requesting to schedule April meeting change to April 19th through 20th. Please respond to Debbie, or if you have not had an opportunity to do so, sorry for the last minute change. April is not last minute for most people, but it is for our board. We do try to schedule it quite in advance for to accommodate everyone. So please mark your calendar. April meeting is going to be on April 19th through 20th instead of 26th through 27th. So the meeting dates have changed. Also, reminder that the remote meeting provisions will be in place until the end of June. After that, there may be a possibility that we all have to get back in person. Just a little heads up. Moderator, please open the line for public comment.
And we are opening the WebEx Q&A to facilitate public comment on future meeting dates. If you have a comment, you can submit it by clicking on the question mark icon, type the word comment in the text box and click send, or anyone may raise their hand by clicking on the hand icon, and our call-in users can press *3. Each speaker will have 3 minutes. Are there any comments on agenda dates or meeting dates? I see no requests for comment. Shall I close the public comment feature?
Yes, please. Thank you so much, moderator. All right, with that concludes the Organizational Development Committee report. And now the next agenda item 14, Executive Officer Report. Members, I'll turn the meeting over to Anne for a brief report on her Executive Officer Report. Thank you, Anne. The floor is yours. You're still, there you are.
Hi. So just really quick, just 2 items. We are continuing our wind down activities following the governor's termination of the COVID pandemic. So in the meeting materials, it does highlight the broad waivers that are still in effect and the expiration dates, which is May 28th. So in terms of the wind downs, we have been doing subscriber alerts. So for the board's waivers, I do just want to highlight, do have a different expiration date than those of the DCA director. We have been trying to do some outreach because there does seem to be some misunderstanding by some of the licensees. So we've been trying to release some subscriber alerts to clarify those differences. The other one that I just want to highlight is specific to the use of mobile pharmacies and mobile clinics that's allowed under 4062. So through COVID, there were a number of entities that requested the use of those mobile pharmacies. We issued or approved about almost 3,300 of those. Those must stop being used within 48 hours after the end of the declared emergency, which in California will be February 28th. So we've done our outreach to those entities as well, but want to make sure that members are aware of the different timeframes. So we have reached out to those entities to ensure that they are aware, but we are doing that from a wind down perspective as well. And then there was information in the recent newsletter that was released as well to ensure, again, that people understand where we are in terms of winding down and kind of returning back to a more normal state of operations with respect to pharmacy law provisions. And then the only other thing that I've included is there's been some discussion about the PrEP Act. We're not going to go into any type of great detail about the PrEP Act, but did try to include some links to some helpful information that the federal government does have available for individuals. Would really encourage people to read it. I think that sometimes, we kind of have a tendency to kind of clump a lot of information together. Would really encourage people to read some of that because some of the information is a little bit nuanced. I'm not an attorney, certainly not in a position to provide anybody with advice on anything, but there is some information in there. Would encourage people to review it and maybe work with their counsels if they're trying to understand the applicability of it. And I'll probably stop with that. So thank you.
Go ahead, Trevor.
Thanks so
Don't
much.
leave yet, Ann.
What'd you say?
Oh no, go ahead, Trevor. And screen camera went dark already, so I was just like,
She thought she got away from me.
Yeah.
Just a question about the mobile vaccination sites, because especially I know in underserved communities, the mobile vaccination sites were incredibly helpful, and I imagine in future pandemics or future breakouts of, I'm thinking obviously monkeypox most recently, I imagine these were also helpful in getting those out. Should we be discussing a legislative remedy to be making mobile vaccination sites beyond just COVID easier to do? Is this a conversation for another committee? I'm just thinking, especially in the event of another outbreak, rather than having to possibly wait for a pandemic declaration in order to get it done, is there a way we can make sure that mobile vaccination sites are still easy to get activated?
Thank you for the comments, Trevor. I'm pretty sure mobile vaccine, and just go ahead and speak. I'm pretty sure that the vaccinations are quite open to wherever they can be to provide anywhere. So, and go ahead.
Yeah, so I think part of the reason, Trevor, that people were using the mobile pharmacy specific for vaccinations was to allow for pharmacy technicians to participate in the process. Pharmacy technicians in our law really just reside within the four walls of the pharmacy. It's an oversimplification, but in general, that's kind of where it is. So that might be something that, you know, the licensing committee might want to consider. I think that they've received public comment in the past about that. The mass vaccination site thing was really more intended to address maybe some of the logistics of drug distribution itself, because when we were looking at these mass vaccination sites, they didn't necessarily lend themselves to places where you would normally be providing healthcare services. So hopeful that we are never going to find ourselves in this kind of extraordinary kind of situation that we did with COVID. I guess the good news is we would have a roadmap if we needed to by putting together a waiver pretty quickly. But in terms of the mobile pharmacy piece, I do believe that it was really to allow for technicians to engage in that under the director's waiver. And the same thing with the mobile testing that was being done. I hope that was helpful and answered your question.
Yes, something for me to chew on. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members for Ann? You know where she is, so I'm sure you all will talk to her if she needs her. You need her. So with that, all right, we'll go to public comment really quick.
And this is the moderator, and we've opened public comment for discussion or comment on the executive officer's report. If you've got any comments, you can look for the question mark icon, typically in the lower right of your WebEx screen. Click that, type the word comment in the text box and click send. Or anyone may raise their hand by clicking on the hand icon, and our call-in users can press *3 to raise their hand. I do have a request for comment from John Gray. John, I'm going to send you a request to unmute your mic, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Hi, this is John Gray, registered pharmacist with Kaiser Permanente. Just wanted to say that we would certainly welcome some additional conversation at the licensing committee around statutory and regulatory changes to allow for pharmacy technicians to assist pharmacists outside of the licensed pharmacy setting. So hopefully there will be an appetite for the licensing committee to take that up at some point.
Thank you, Dr. Gray.
And our next request for comment is from someone logged into WebEx as Lindsay Gullahorn. Lindsay, I'm going to send you a request to unmute your microphone, and then you'll have 3 minutes. And you're unmuted.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, good. Okay. Sorry. This is Lindsay Gullahorn with the California Retailers Association. I wanted to comment on the PrEP Act and pharmacy technicians performing vaccinations specifically. As Ann noted, the state of emergency in California related to COVID is ending at the end of this month, and all related Department of Consumer Affairs waivers end on that date as well. including the DCA waiver that allows pharmacy technicians to perform COVID vaccines and testing that expires on February 28th. However, the Federal PrEP Act does allow pharmacy technicians to perform both of these tasks as well as flu vaccines, and that does not expire until the fall of 2024. So we are looking for some confirmation as to whether pharmacy technicians in California can continue to perform these types of vaccinations and testing through the end of the PrEP Act. Understand that the board is pursuing a legislative proposal that would allow for expanded tech duties, including immunizations, but there is a pretty significant period of time between when the public health emergency ends at the end of this month and when that bill, if it is introduced and passed, goes into effect in 2024. So just want to ensure that if it is the intent of the state that pharmacy technicians can continue to do immunizations and testings until the PrEP Act expires. Thank you.
Thank you for the comments, Lindsay.
And our next request for comment comes from Lori Walmsley. Lori, I'm going to send you a request to unmute your microphone and you'll have 3 minutes.
Good afternoon, Lori Walmsley on behalf of Walgreens. A couple of clarifications in addition to what John Gray mentioned as well as Lindsay Gullahorn. So during your discussion related to mobile pharmacies, I just wanted to clarify that it is permissible for pharmacists to provide vaccination services outside of a licensed pharmacy, i.e. in a nursing home, in a school, something to that effect. That has been a long-standing process. The need for the mobile pharmacy waiver was simply for the inclusion of technicians. So I just wanted to make sure that that's clear for the record. If the board could clarify that, I would very much appreciate that. In addition to what Lindsay mentioned with the PrEP Act, another key critical element that the board needs to consider is the current statutory provisions for pharmacists related to scope of practice only allow a pharmacist to order CLIA waive tests. Throughout the pandemic, pharmacists have also ordered through the PrEP Act, as well as the DCA waiver, clinical labs, specifically the PCR testing for COVID. While COVID testing has been not being performed nearly as often, with the way that the current statute is written, I do have concerns that outside of a collaborative practice agreement or some sort of physician's order, that a pharmacist would not be able to order the PCR testing for COVID, which I think would certainly be a detriment to the public and public health. So certainly something else that I think that the board needs to consider and provide guidance out to the community on how best to continue to serve the public from a public health standpoint. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lori.
And I do not see any other requests for comment. Shall I close the public comment feature?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Okay, and with that, Anne, did you have anything to add? Just want to confirm.
President, hi, this is Eileen Smiley. I just want for board counsel to address a few of these things. But first and foremost, as everyone's probably aware, the U.S. Attorney General and both the General Counsel of the Federal Health and Human Services agencies have concluded that the Secretary's declarations under the PrEP Act with respect to pharmacy technicians and some of the pharmacist duties preempts state law. Consequently, pharmacists and pharmacy technicians that strictly adhere to the Secretary's PrEP Act authorizations, including any incorporated EUA or any other condition, would have an argument that any conflicting state law that would otherwise prohibit them from engaging in the authorized activities is preempted, and a defense to any claim that their actions would be unauthorized under state law. However, Section 3.5 of Article 3 of the California Constitution generally prohibits an administrative agency, including the board, from declaring any of its state statutes as unconstitutional or unenforceable unless there is a Court of Appeals decision saying that the statute is unenforceable or preempted. Since there has not been any specific litigation on this question and no appellate court opinion on the matter, that would preclude the Board of Pharmacy from opining that the PrEP Act preempts all state laws. Additionally, for PrEP Act protections to potentially apply, The person would need to comply precisely with all of the conditions set out in the Secretary's declaration, including any other documents incorporated by reference, including an EUA or anything else. A failure to comply with the conditions would place the person outside of the PrEP Act's protection. Since this would require a case-by-case evaluation of each scenario, it would not be prudent or possible for the board to suggest that the PrEP Act wholesale preempts state laws. This is why instead what we've been stating all along, that licensees interested in fully understanding the applicability of the PrEP Act can review the information put out by the federal government and consult with their own counsel. We have nothing further to say. This is exactly what we've been saying since the scope of this whole pandemic. The board simply doesn't have the ability to give the guidance and the opinion that some of the commenters want. Do any of the members have any questions?
Other than to say, Eileen, thank you for the very impressive summary and reminder, why I probably didn't go to law school. Thank you for all of that. Really appreciate it. And any other member comments? And Anne, did you want to say anything?
No, I was just going to kick it to Eileen, so I'm glad she jumped in.
Okay. All right. Anything else to add, Eileen, before I move on?
Not that I can think of, President O.
Okay, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Well, that was a fun meeting for us. This concludes our open session. Thank you, everyone, and really appreciate all your time and dedication. All the stakeholders, thank you for coming. We will go into closed session. Adjournment for the day will immediately follow closed session, and there will be no other items of business discussed. Members will begin in about 10 minutes at 2:45. Just stay right on here. We'll be shuffled into the different room. So we will see you all there. And thank you all, the public, for participating today. Really appreciate your time. Thank you, everyone.